Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got, well, a substantial collection of articles, research, notes right here, a real stack of insights, and they're all circling one central idea.
Right.
What exactly is human patience? Especially now, when artificial intelligence is changing the world so rapidly.
Patience feels like something we all kind of understand instinctively, but these sources, they really reveal it's far more intricate than just waiting.
Yeah.
It's like a fundamental aspect of being human, and exploring it touches on psychology, philosophy, even biology, and definitely our cultures and faith.
That's the mission then. For you, our listener, we're going to unpack these sources together. We'll pull out the most important nuggets, try to figure out what patience really is. Look at its, surprising impact, maybe peek at its darker side too, and see how the whole picture changes when AI enters the conversation. Let's dive in.
Let's. The material really emphasizes that patience is a cornerstone of human character and pretty crucial for society to function smoothly. It's such a rich concept.
Okay, so let's definitely go beyond just, the simple definition of waiting. What do these sources tell us patience actually is?
Well, from a psychological view, patience, sometimes called forbearance, it's defined as the ability to endure difficult or unwelcome long-term situations without reacting negatively.
Okay.
So no anger, no disrespect, and it's not passive. It's an active trait described as disciplined, steadfast. If you think about its opposite, impatience, hastiness, you kind of see how much control is involved.
So it's about managing that internal state, that feeling when things are tough or just really slow.
Precisely. Psychologists also often frame it as a decision-making challenge, specifically delayed gratification, that classic scenario, right? Choosing a smaller reward now versus a bigger one later.
The marshmallow test, basically.
Kind of, yeah. And Dr. Sarah Schnicker's research, mentioned here, defines patience as remaining calm even when facing adversity, suffering, or waiting. But she highlights something key. It's not about somehow eliminating the feeling of frustration or difficulty.
Right, because that's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. It's about regulating those emotions while, keeping a clear head.
So feeling frustrated is totally human, but patience is how you handle it and keep moving forward anyway.
That's it. And Schnicker adds that genuine patience involves active engagement. You're pursuing some kind of moral good, a telos, or purpose, even when progress is incredibly slow or feels non-existent.
So that's what separates it from just passively giving up, or like a predator just sitting still.
Exactly. It's different. Another researcher, Kate Sweeney, uses a process model where impatience is the raw emotion you feel, and patience is the coping strategy you use to regulate that emotion. Cornell's definition is pretty direct: to bear pains or trials calmly and without complaint, or to remain steadfast despite opposition or difficulty.
Interesting. So summing up the psychological view, it's both a fundamental part of your personality, maybe a trait, and also a set of deliberate coping strategies you actually use. And your natural capacity, the trait part, probably influences how well you can even use those strategies.
That's a great summary. Now, if we shift to philosophy, patience is often elevated. It's seen as a virtue essential for developing ethically and living a truly flourishing life. Miller and Furr, for instance, describe it as this stable disposition.
Stable disposition.
Yeah, that allows you to react calmly when things just aren't progressing as quickly as you'd like towards a goal. They break it down into components: emotional calmness, having good, moral reasons for being patient; cognitive judgment about what's reasonable.
Okay.
And then the actual patient behaviors you show.
Yeah, it sounds like it permeates your entire being, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. It's not just one thing.
It really does. Matthew Pinalto calls it multifaceted, a foundational virtue. It covers everything from disciplined waiting and enduring difficulty without complaint to tolerance and perseverance.
Wow.
And the Stoics, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, they saw patience as a cardinal strength, an art of self-mastery for enduring suffering with equanimity, finding inner peace. And they made this really crucial distinction that resonates with Schinker's point. Continence is when you're struggling internally, really fighting it, but you force yourself to act patiently, whereas true, virtuous patience is an internal achievement. The calmness comes more naturally because it's from a cultivated character, guided by wisdom and moral aims.
So it's not just putting on a brave face, it's genuinely achieving that inner state. Okay, does the science back this up? Is there something happening in our brains?
Oh, absolutely. These sources really get into the neurobiological underpinnings. Patience seems to involve complex interactions between different brain regions, the orbitofrontal cortex, OFC, the medial prefrontal cortex, MPFC, the nucleus accumbens, NIC, those are all involved.
Okay, brain stuff.
Yeah, brain stuff. And the neurotransmitter serotonin, specifically from the dorsal raphe nucleus, DRN, seems strongly linked to waiting for a reward. Increased firing in the DRN apparently helps facilitate waiting. Higher activation is associated with waiting longer.
So serotonin levels might actually influence your ability to just hold out for something good. That's fascinating.
It is. And the dopamine system, especially activity in the ventral tegmental area, the VTA, is strongly implicated in delayed gratification. There's this phenomenon called VTA dopamine ramping.
Ramping?
Yeah, ramping. The dopamine neurons fire more and more as the waiting period for a larger, later reward increases. This ramping seems to signal the increasing value of waiting. It provides real-time support, like for deliberating that choice between now and later.
So our brain is literally doing the math, saying, hey, the longer you wait, the better this future thing looks. That's incredible.
It really shows that patience isn't just a mental idea or behavior. It has a tangible basis in our brain's structure and function, reward processing, executive functions, emotional regulation. It's biological predisposition interacting with everything we experience and learn.
Okay, so pulling this first part together, patience is definitely not passive waiting. It's this really active internal capacity to manage emotions, endure the tough stuff, make decisions based on long-term values. And it's grounded in our biology, our psychology, philosophy, that deep inner resolve.
Yeah.
It's way more intricate than I ever imagined.
It truly is. And, it gets even more complex and fascinating when you look at how patience is understood and expressed across different cultures and faiths around the world. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all concept.
It makes perfect sense. Different histories, different values, different contexts.
Oh, wow.
What are some examples the sources bring up?
Well, take gay men in Japanese culture. It translates loosely to enduring the seemingly unbearable with patience and dignity. It's deeply tied to perseverance, tolerance, self-control, especially for maintaining social harmony.
Harmony is key there.
Very key. It's a virtue taught from childhood, seen as a sign of maturity, strength, often involving silent endurance, not complaining outwardly. You saw this, apparently, in the resilience after events like the 2011 Tohoku earthquake or the quiet endurance of Japanese Americans in internment camps during WWII.
Powerful.
Although the sources do mention critiques that too much emotional suppression might have mental health costs, and the emphasis on conformity isn't always seen as positive.
Right, there's always a flip side. What else?
The Lakota have Wachinhaka. It means fortitude, facing danger and challenges with courage, strength, confidence. But it explicitly includes patience, perseverance, strength of mind, even when you're afraid. It's about accepting problems and working together to find solutions for the whole community.
That collective focus again. Seems like a theme.
It really does. And the concept of Ubuntu in African philosophy, meaning humanness, it's centered on caring, sharing, community solidarity. I am because we are.
Heard that phrase.
Yeah. While patience isn't the only focus, enduring difficulties through communal support, that value of collective survival and maintaining group harmony clearly requires and cultivates tolerance, compassion, and, patience.
And with our world getting so interconnected, understanding these different cultural takes on patience seems vital for just getting along.
It is. The sources really stress patience as fundamental for effective cross-cultural communication. It means active listening, really trying to grasp nuances, embracing differences instead of just judging them.
Yeah.
Being thoughtful on how you communicate, staying curious about other views, being adaptable, patiently working through misunderstandings is absolutely key. Anthropological research, interestingly, shows waiting is universal. It's a social thing everywhere, always demanding patience, hope, agency. It's just woven into being human.
It strikes me that these cultural expressions often link patience to something bigger than the individual social harmony, community survival, collective purpose.
That focus on a larger purpose, it's even more pronounced in religious traditions. Patience is pretty consistently revered as a cardinal virtue, essential for spiritual growth, ethical living, your relationship with the divine, however that's conceived.
How do some of the major faiths talk about patience?
Okay, so in Christianity, patience is listed as a fruit of the Spirit. Biblical figures like Job, enduring immense suffering while keeping faith, are classic examples. It involves enduring hardship, waiting on God's timing, trusting in divine compassion. Theologians often distinguish between a macrothumia, patience with people, rooted in love and forgiveness, and hupomone, perseverance, patience with circumstances, rooted more in courage and trust in God's plan or will.
A distinction between being patient with people versus being patient with difficult situations, that's actually really helpful.
It is, right? In Buddhism, kshanti, or kanti in Pali, refers to patience or forbearance. It's one of the paramitas, the perfections needed for enlightenment. It means not returning harm, controlling your emotions even when you feel attacked. The Dhammapada says enduring patience is the highest austerity.
Wow.
Some teachers even suggest viewing difficult people as teachers' opportunities to develop patience. It's deeply linked to emotional regulation. Some historical practices, like scarification in certain monastic traditions, even symbolize this commitment to endurance.
So seeing frustrating experiences almost like training grounds.
Yeah.
It's a very proactive way to look at it.
Right. Hinduism has the concept of titisha, which is forbearance or endurance. It's about cheerfully enduring trying conditions, including the consequences of past actions, karma, calmly withstanding opposites like pain and pleasure without anxiety or revenge. Cheerfully, yeah. Enduring insults without negative emotional reactions. It's linked to core virtues like nonviolence, truthfulness. Epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata illustrate this strategic patience tied to dharma, righteousness, moral strength.
Enduring insults cheerfully. That requires a remarkable level of inner peace, or strength, or both.
It certainly does. In Islam, sabr is a highly esteemed virtue. The Quran states that Allah is with the patient. And the story of Prophet Job, Ayub, patiently enduring the loss of everything as a test from God, is a central example.
A familiar story across traditions.
Yes. And Judaism also emphasizes patience and fortitude. The Talmud praises it. Prophets like Micah find strength in patiently waiting for God's justice. Patience in God aids believers.
So, despite all the unique expressions, Japanese dignity, Lakota communal strength, Buddhist non-harming, Hindu cheerful endurance, Abrahamic faith in a divine plan, these diverse traditions all seem to agree on the fundamental importance of patience for growth, ethics, harmony, navigating life.
Exactly, and it's consistently presented as this active inner resolve, often connected to some higher purpose or greater good.
That connection to active inner resolve is key. And this capacity for patience.
Yeah.
It isn't static, right? You mentioned it has evolutionary roots and develops over our lives.
Precisely. The sources talk about evolution and the lifespan journey. Where does this capacity even come from deep in our history? Well, the ability to delay gratification seems to have ancient evolutionary origins. Comparative studies looked at humans, chimps, bonobos.
Yeah.
Interestingly, humans are sometimes less patient than chimps when it comes to immediate biological rewards like, say, food.
Really? That's surprising. I'd have guessed the opposite.
It is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But humans are significantly more patient for abstract rewards, things like money, especially if waiting isn't too costly. The sources suggest this reflects an evolutionary shift linked to our more complex thinking and social structures. The general animal tendency towards grab it now provides a contrast, highlighting human patience as a more developed capacity, though still one we clearly struggle with.
So maybe our ancestors, who could wait for a bigger payoff from complex stuff, like coordinating a big hunt or managing stored food, maybe they had an edge.
That's a plausible interpretation. Delayed gratification was crucial for self-regulation. But, in uncertain ancestral environments, immediate resources were often critical for survival right now.
True.
That VTA dopamine ramping we talked about earlier, it's thought to be part of this adaptation, signaling the increasing value of waiting, supporting that constant deliberation. Is the future reward worth holding out for?
Okay, so we have this evolved foundation, but it's not fixed. It gets built upon as we grow older.
Absolutely. There's a clear developmental progression. In childhood, especially between ages 3 and 8, you see a significant jump in the ability to wait and understand future desires. Patience training is really helpful here.
How do you train a toddler in patience?
Well, strategies like adults modeling patient behavior, setting realistic expectations, playing games that require turn taping, having predictable routines, those are important. And of course, remembering age-appropriate activities for those short attention spans is key. Trying to teach a 3-year-old stoic endurance is probably
A losing battle.
Let's just say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Then adolescence, say 13 to 18, that's a critical but often challenging stage. It's often marked by increased impulsivity, mood swings, risk-taking.
Yep, sounds familiar.
This is linked to what's called hyperbolic discounting, where delayed outcomes are heavily undervalued. And the fact that the prefrontal cortex, the brain region for executive functions like planning and impulse control, is still maturing. It's not fully online yet.
So the brain's patient circuitry is literally still under construction during the teen years.
In a way, yes. That developmental lag can explain some of those classic teenage lapses in judgment. Then, as we move into adulthood and midlife, maybe 40s to 60s, patience remains vital for navigating complex challenges, career changes, family dynamics shifting like the empty nest or caring for aging parents, big existential questions maybe.
The midlife crisis stuff.
Potentially. Erickson's stage of generativity versus stagnation is relevant here. Patience provides the space for pause, reflection, realigning with a sense of purpose. It can potentially turn what might feel like a crisis into a period of growth instead.
It gives you the breathing room to reassess instead of just reacting or feeling stuck.
Exactly. And in old age, patience becomes important for overall well-being and life satisfaction. Older adults often show increased emotional resilience, maybe from a lifetime of practice. Patience helps cope with the realities of aging, chronic illness, loss, physical changes. Longitudinal studies show variability, but adaptive coping strategies, which patience supports, are always beneficial.
Did the sources look at whether there are gender differences? Like, are men or women inherently more patient?
Research on inherent differences in, core time preference is mixed. Some studies find no significant difference. However, societal norms and expectations can profoundly influence how patience is expressed and perceived.
How so?
Well, men might be socialized to show stoicism, maybe mask impatience, while women's expressions of pain or distress might sometimes be misinterpreted or dismissed as impatience. So the underlying capacity might not differ much, but the way it shows up and how it's read by others can certainly be gendered.
Got it. So patience isn't just fixed. It's this complex mix of our evolutionary past, brain development, what we learn from culture and family, how we navigate life stages, and our unique human ability to wait for abstract future goals is powerful, but constantly tested by a world that often prizes instant speed.
Which leads us directly to the huge impact this complex patience, or lack of it, has on virtually every aspect of our lives.
I can already see how fundamental it is. What are the major ways patience impacts us, according to these sources?
Okay, first, let's consider the individual mind. Patience significantly improves the quality of our decision-making. Simple as that. It lets impulsive emotions cool down, reducing the chance of rash, regretful choices.
Makes sense. Sleep on it.
Right. It provides space for thorough consideration, exploring perspectives, gathering info. This leads to better problem solving, maybe more creative solutions. Making patient decisions builds self-trust. One source even notes that embracing the wait can allow intuition to surface. Impatience, predictably, leads to hasty judgments, ignoring long-term consequences.
Rushing a big decision just never feels right. What about our ability to focus? Is that linked?
Oh, closely linked. Patience and attention and cognitive control. Sustained attention, staying focused, despite distractions, is crucial for any task that requires patience. Self-regulation, which includes patience, is an executive function. It helps us control thoughts and actions, monitor progress, adjust behavior, maintain focus. Think about the intense, focused patience needed by a surgeon managing multiple distractions.
Yeah, definitely.
The process model we discussed earlier explicitly links patience to executive function and emotion regulation. Stronger self-control supports more patient responses.
So patience helps you focus, and focus makes it easier to be patient. Sounds like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. And the impact on both mental and physical health is quite significant, according to these studies. Individuals described as more patient tend to report lower levels of depression and anxiety and higher life satisfaction.
Really?
Yeah. Dr. Schnitker's research specifically found different types of patience linked to different benefits. Interpersonal patience was associated with lower anxiety. Patience with life hardships linked to lower depression and better general psychological health, and patience with daily hassles.
Like traffic jams.
Exactly. That was the strongest predictor of overall life satisfaction. Cultivating patience also seems linked to other good stuff like empathy and gratitude.
So patience literally makes you feel better emotionally and more satisfied with life.
The evidence strongly suggests that. And on the physical side, patient individuals tend to experience lower stress levels. Consequently, fewer stress-related physical issues, headaches, acne, ulcers, diarrhea, the list goes on. Impatience is associated with irritability, potentially higher heart risk, poor sleep.
That chronic stress response.
Exactly. Cortisol, adrenaline, wearing the body down. And here's a particularly striking finding mentioned. Higher impatience has been correlated with shorter telomeres.
Telomeres, those are the caps on our DNA, right?
Protective caps, yes. Shorter telomeres are linked to faster biological aging. So this suggests impatience might literally accelerate biological aging.
Wow, impatience could make you physiologically older, faster. That's a powerful reason to work on it.
It really highlights the mind-body connection. The sources also emphasize the role of patience in navigating struggles and transformation. It's a vital coping mechanism for dealing with stressors, enduring frustration or suffering when there's no quick fix. It's that active process maintaining composure, purpose. Studies during COVID, for example, found higher patience correlated with greater stress tolerance among medical staff.
Makes sense.
And looking through history, figures like George Washington at Valley Forge, they exemplify how patience can be a crucial strength in leadership during extreme hardship.
It's what allows people, leaders, anyone to persevere through the absolute worst times.
And interestingly, it can lead to something deeper than just recovering or bouncing back. The sources draw a distinction between resilience and transformation. Resilience is often described as bouncing back to your old self. Patience, though, by allowing you to embrace an abundance of time, maybe letting your future identity be undefined for a bit, it can facilitate transformation, a kind of transfiguration. It takes courage to patiently face the possibility of becoming a fundamentally different person after hardship.
So patience can help you evolve into someone new after a major challenge, not just snap back to who you were before.
Yes, it provides the space for that potentially profound shift. It's also connected deeply to finding meaning in suffering. Patiently enduring difficult experiences often forces you to contemplate what is truly worth suffering for.
Yeah.
From an existential viewpoint, suffering is just part of life, right? Relating to it patiently is seen as essential for existential health. The original meaning of patience included overcoming suffering to gain deeper understanding of self and others. Even in process theology, there's this idea of God as a fellow sufferer whose infinite patience somehow preserves suffering, giving it cosmic significance.
Patience helps us find purpose even within pain.
It seems to, and this ties into our awareness of finitude and mortality. Knowing our time is limited shapes our sense of urgency. But patient acceptance of finitude isn't about giving up. It's about being able to slow down, be present, accept what you can't control, and patiently persist in the activities and relationships you value most.
Right.
This acceptance, paradoxically, can be liberating. It allows you to focus on what truly matters.
That's a beautiful thought. Accepting limitations with patience can actually free you to live more fully.
Yeah.
What about the impact beyond the individual, on our relationships, society?
Oh, huge impact on the social level. Patience is absolutely foundational. For interpersonal relationships, it's a cornerstone for success, harmony. It's vital for empathy. Impatience tends to be self-focused, right? Patience lets you genuinely focus outward on the other person.
True.
Patient communication prevents hurtful exchanges. You slow down, avoid reacting out of irritation, refrain from hasty or selfish remarks. It requires active listening, emotional intelligence. It can truly transform relationships.
Fewer quick reports, more thoughtful responses. Seems like a recipe for better relationships, definitely.
Exactly. It's also crucial for social harmony, cooperation, and conflict resolution. Patience prevents disagreements from escalating instantly. It encourages stepping back, gaining perspective, understanding the other person's needs, and then finding creative, mutually agreeable solutions. The sources even mention patient sociology.
Patient sociology.
Yeah, emphasizing relational patience, building trust over time, and perspectival patience, patiently trying to understand diverse viewpoints for deep social understanding.
Building trust and understanding definitely takes time. No shortcut there.
And at the societal level, patience, often reflected in cultural values like long-term orientation, correlates with societal progress and innovation. It's linked to economic growth, investments in education, environmental sustainability. In business, patience means focusing on sustainable long-term strategies, building good stakeholder relationships, managing uncertainty, fostering a culture of creativity and experimentation. Impatient demands for immediate results. They often stifle true innovation.
Right. Breakthrough ideas need time and space to mature, not just constant pressure for quick wins.
Precisely. And finally, patience significantly impacts our relationship with the environment and animal welfare. Individual and inherited patients are linked to more pro-environmental attitudes and behaviors. You're willing to bear current costs like recycling, consuming less for a future environmental benefit.
Makes sense.
Human impatience that drive for immediate consumption and profit is a major force behind resource depletion, biodiversity loss, climate change. We're using resources faster than they regenerate. Think Earth Overshoot Day.
Yeah, that day keeps getting earlier.
It does. And when it comes to animals, owner patience is paramount in training. Patient positive reinforcement builds trust, improves learning for the animal, strengthens the human-animal bond. Impatience just leads to frustration for everyone.
So the sources really paint a picture where patience isn't just a personal virtue that makes you feel a bit better. It's essential for making wise decisions, staying healthy, building strong relationships, fostering societal progress, even being a responsible steward of the planet and caring for animals. The patience dividend seems huge, rippling outwards.
It truly does. But just as light casts a shadow, the importance of patience highlights the significant downside of its absence: impatience.
Ah, yes, the shadow of impatience. What does that look like in these sources? What are the costs?
The impatient mind is often characterized by that strong preference for immediate gratification, difficulty inhibiting impulsive responses, leading to various maladaptive patterns. Impulsivity is a core feature, basically acting without thinking.
We talked about that with teens.
Yes, but it applies broadly. It's strongly linked to risky decisions because the immediate reward gets prioritized over potential long-term negative consequences. This is associated with imbalances in the brain's reward versus inhibition systems, and a failure in the prefrontal cortex to exert control. Difficulty delaying gratification is a key symptom.
So the inability to wait manifests as acting rashly, taking risks.
Yes. And it's crucial here to distinguish healthy persistence from maladaptive perseveration. Persistence is good. It's continuing to work towards a goal despite difficulty, linked to resilience, self-regulation. Perseveration is maladaptive. It's continuing an ineffective behavior, thought, or emotion.
Like being stuck in a rut.
Exactly, a kind of rigidity, stuckness. It's often linked to psychopathology like anxiety or conditions like brain injury, Alzheimer's. Stress tends to worsen it. Perseveration is this pathological hybrid. It keeps going, but it lacks the calm effectiveness of patience. It's driven by an inability to disengage or shift strategy.
That distinction makes a lot of sense. One is productive sticking with it, the other is unproductive being stuck.
Right. The link between impatience and addiction is also very well documented, especially through behavioral economics. Addicts often exhibit much steeper delayed reward discounting, or DRD. They drastically devalue future rewards compared to immediate ones.
More than usual.
Significantly more, yeah. Hyperbolic discounting helps explain this. The overwhelming value of the immediate reward, like the drug, temporarily outweighs the much larger but delayed benefit of sobriety. It creates this constant conflict. Behavioral economic models like choice bundling or developing personal rules are strategies to combat this, trying to strengthen the perceived value of the long-term reward.
So addiction, from this perspective, is partly a struggle with extreme impatience, where the brain intensely discounts the future good.
That's one significant angle highlighted in that literature, yes. This shadow of impatience also casts itself across societal ills. Impulsivity is a recognized factor in antisocial behavior, especially during adolescence. Violating norms, harming others. Low empathy combined with high impulsivity can amplify negative environmental effects. There's talk of an externalizing spectrum linking antisocial behavior, substance use, impulsive traits.
So a potential pathway.
A possible pathway. Impatience leads to impulsivity, which might reduce empathy, potentially resulting in harmful actions towards others.
That connection from impatience to harmful actions is quite sobering.
And on a grand scale, collective human impatience is seen as a major driver of resource depletion and environmental degradation. That relentless demand for immediate economic growth, consumption, profit, it often overrides long-term sustainability.
Burning down the forest for the bonus tomorrow.
That's a quote reflecting the mindset, yes. We're literally using up the planet's resources, forests, fisheries, soil, faster than they can regenerate. Biodiversity loss, climate change. These are consequences of prioritizing short-term gain over long-term planetary health. Earth Overshoot Day just keeps illustrating this collective impatience.
So the planet is suffering because of our collective inability to wait for sustainable approaches, basically.
In large part, yes. This brings us squarely to the ethical dimensions of impatience. Greed is strongly linked to impatience, that chronic dissatisfaction, insatiable desire, often for immediate material gain or power.
Impatience fuels greed.
It seems to. This mindset prioritizes immediate gain over ethical considerations, long-term consequences. Greed and impatience are even called twin killers of success because impatience lowers the ethical threshold by making the long-term value of ethical behavior seem less important compared to the immediate win.
It's all about getting the quick payoff, regardless of the cost to others or the future.
Exactly. Conversely, patience is presented as necessary for robust ethical behavior, truthfulness, and responsibility. Think about healthcare ethics principles like doing good, avoiding harm, respecting autonomy, justice. They all implicitly require patience. Patiently explaining informed consent, deliberating for just resource distribution.
Takes time.
It takes time. Truth-telling often needs a sensitive, patient approach. Sanatana Dharma links strategic patience to upholding Dharma, moral strength. An impatient mindset compromises truth, justice, responsibility because it avoids the effort, the careful thought, the delay needed for deep ethical consideration. Societal rewards for speed can foster individual impatience, contributing to large-scale problems like resource depletion, maybe even a decline in deep ethical reasoning.
So impatience isn't just a personal frustration. It can undermine our ethics, make us less responsible, and contribute to major societal and environmental problems. That's a significant shadow indeed.
It is. And these profound human struggles with both patience and its shadow, impatience, are so fundamental that they've been a constant theme reflected in art throughout history.
Yes. The sources mentioned art as a mirror. How does it capture these very human struggles?
Art, literature, even music, they really serve as reflections. In literature, the story of Job is maybe the archetype of enduring suffering with faith and patience, the patience of Job.
Classic.
Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea series often contrasts that impatient grasp for quick power with the slow, patient path to true mastery. Shakespeare explores patience in various lights, sometimes as a virtue leading to triumph, sometimes critiquing how the powerful demand it from others, sometimes satirizing its misuse.
So different angles on what patience means or should mean.
Yes. The idea of narrative patience even applies to the author's style. Chekhov, for instance, uses patient, detailed observation to reveal deep human drama in seemingly small moments. Amy Bender's stories can patiently explore really unconventional perspectives, even characters who seem passive, like Voltaire's Candide or Melville's Bartleby.
Bartleby the Scrivener. I would prefer not to.
That's the one. Their stillness, their seeming lack of action, can be seen as a form of unconventional patience, highlighting the world's absurdities or forcing others to confront things.
Their inaction becomes the driving force, in a weird way.
It does. Visual art also uses symbolism related to waiting and endurance. Klimt's The Waiting tries to capture that emotional state of anticipation. Landscapes with mountains or hills often symbolize stability, endurance, the slow, patient progress of nature. But the sources also point to critiques of impatience within the art world itself, pressure for speed, for output over depth, potentially leading to more superficial work, genuine artistic mastery, significant contributions. They often require years, decades of patient refinement.
True creativity and quality rarely happen overnight, that's for sure.
In theater and cinema, the theme of waiting is central to many works. Shade and Meredith's play Waiting, or Beckett's seminal Waiting for Godot, they make waiting itself the fundamental project, the search for meaning, despite its apparent futility. Operettas like Gilbert and Sullivan's Patience satirize impatience, especially in romance.
Right. And countless films tell stories of survival, overcoming adversity, the hero's journey. Think of films like Castaway, Rocky, 12 Years a Slave. They are powerful depictions of human resilience and perseverance against seemingly impossible odds.
They inspire us with sheer human capacity to endure, to keep going.
And while the sources didn't go into huge detail on music, you can see how music itself requires immense patience in composition, in mastering an instrument, in performance. Musical forms can even evoke the feeling of waiting and anticipation through structure, rhythm, tempo, tension, and release.
So art doesn't just show us patience. It often requires patience from us, the audience, to fully appreciate. It serves as this profound mirror reflecting our human struggles with impulse, endurance, and the value of waiting.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most contemporary piece of this puzzle, artificial intelligence. How does AI fit into this deeply human experience of patience?
That feels like the million-dollar question. Can AI even relate to a concept like patience? Does it compute?
The sources offer a pretty nuanced perspective. AI can analyze and simulate aspects related to patience, but there are fundamental limits. First, think of AI as a mirror, reflecting aspects of human patience. Emotion AI, for instance, can be trained on data to recognize human emotional expressions, facial cues, vocal tones, text patterns that we associate with patience or impatience. Calmness versus agitation.
Okay.
It uses machine learning, neural networks for this. It can identify patterns and data related to behavior, like maybe obsessive online posting potentially linked to impatience. It might infer correlates of patience through combining inputs, recognizing a calm voice plus persistent task focus versus agitated speech plus frequent task switching.
So it can detect the outward signs that we associate with being patient or impatient, the data patterns.
Yes, it recognizes patterns correlated with those states in the data it's trained on. But crucially,
Wow.
is it actually understanding patience in the human sense? No. It does not have the subjective internal experience. There are significant limits. AI struggles with nuance, with context, subtle cues, cultural variations, sarcasm with ambiguity. Misinterpretations are very possible, and bias in the training data. That can lead to biased interpretations of who seems patient or impatient across different groups.
It can see the behavior or the data pattern, but it doesn't feel the feeling, the frustration, the hope, or understand the deep why behind human patience, not from the inside.
That's the core distinction. Now let's look at the algorithmic gaze where AI can simulate patience. Computational models, especially in reinforcement learning, are designed to simulate decision-making involving delayed rewards. Models like continuous deliberation can reproduce observed behaviors, like waiting longer for a bigger reward. Their internal workings can sometimes align with neural patterns we see in humans, like that VTA dopamine ramping. They can simulate patience as an optimal strategy to maximize rewards within a specific defined structure.
So AI can make decisions that look patient because its programming or learning process tells it that waiting is the best path to achieve its defined goal.
Exactly. It simulates making choices in uncertain environments, using predictive modeling to maximize long-term utility based on its programming or learned rewards. AI can be designed to align with user preferences, maybe supporting long-term goals that require patient strategies. However, simulating truly long-term, complex human decision-making with all its emotional and subjective layers still incredibly difficult.
And why is that?
Well, RL models need huge amounts of data. Learning can be slow when rewards are way off in the future, the credit assignment problem, and often we face the black box problem. It's hard to fully understand why the AI chose that patient-looking strategy. What was its internal reasoning, if you can call it that?
So it can mimic the result of a patient calculation in a limited problem space, but it doesn't go through the human internal process, not even close.
That's the fundamental difference. This highlights the uncanny valley AI's fundamental limits when compared to human patients. AI lacks subjective experience, consciousness, genuine emotional depth. It doesn't feel patience, frustration, hope. Its response is based on programming and data processing, not a felt internal state.
The points in the sources drawing on Damasio's work seem really relevant here, about needing a biological body for feelings.
They are very relevant. Damasio argues consciousness and feelings emerge from the biological bodies striving for homeostasis, for survival. AI lacks a biological body, lacks those complex internal states, so it doesn't have subjective experience in the human sense. Patience, which is so tied to managing internal discomfort, enduring suffering, hoping for a future state, it's deeply linked to this felt reality that AI just doesn't have.
Right.
AI also struggles with critical context, cultural nuance, subtle emotional tone, things essential for truly understanding human communication. Human empathy, lived experience, they remain irreplaceable.
So no matter how sophisticated AI gets at mimicking patient behavior, it won't actually be patient or understand what that experience is like from the inside. We shouldn't confuse the simulation with the real thing.
That's a crucial distinction to maintain, comparing them. Humans have subjective experience, emotional depth, rich context, complex learning that incorporates feeling, ethical nuance, consciousness. AI processes data, finds patterns, simulates behaviors, but lacks all those subjective felt aspects. There's a real risk here of anthropomorphizing AI, attributing genuine understanding, feelings, or intentions like patience where they simply don't exist. This can lead to misplaced trust, unrealistic expectations.
Okay, so AI can't experience patience itself.
Yeah.
But can it be a useful tool? Can it actually help us humans cultivate our own patience?
Absolutely, and this is where AI's potential to serve human patience and well-being becomes clear, despite its limits. Think of AI as a tool for enlightenment, helping us understand our own patience and impatience better. Personalized insights. AI could analyze our data, maybe tracking mood, communication patterns from texts or emails, even data from wearables to give us feedback on our personal patience patterns, what triggers our impatience, what coping strategies seem to work for us. Chatbots could offer a non-judgmental, reflective space to process feelings of frustration. AI could identify patterns over time, acting as a kind of mirror for self-awareness.
That seems genuinely useful, showing us things about ourselves we might not notice day to day.
And AI-assisted tools can actively help us cultivate virtue, including patience and self-control, mindfulness, and meditation apps. Many use AI to personalize sessions for focus and regulation. CBT chatbots like Wobot or Wysa can deliver elements of therapy to help users challenge negative thoughts, manage stress and anxiety, both of which undermine patience.
Right.
Educational tools for kids often require persistence, helping build that foundation. AI coaching is being explored for emotional intelligence, including self-regulation and empathy. Tools designed to mitigate impulsivity, like digital therapies for ADHD, directly target a core component of impatience. AI can augment these traditional methods in potentially powerful ways.
So AI could be like a personalized digital coach or assistant, helping us build those patience muscles.
Yes. There's also potential, though, this area needs really careful handling for AI to help mitigate the maladaptive side of impatience, like harmful obsessions or extreme impulsivity. Conversational AI could perhaps be designed to help individuals identify and challenge cognitive biases underlying maladaptive thoughts. AI is being explored in support for conditions like OCD diagnosis, treatment personalization, maybe even neurostimulation or biofeedback applications down the line. Social media monitoring could theoretically flag obsessive patterns, though the privacy and ethical risks there are obviously huge.
That potential for addressing harmful patterns sounds promising, but yeah, the ethical considerations feel very real and very immediate there.
Absolutely critical. The sources strongly emphasize the need for a robust ethical compass in AI design, especially when it touches human well-being. The first principle has to be human autonomy. AI should enhance, not diminish, our ability to make our own choices. Human oversight is crucial, especially in sensitive areas like mental health or education. AI should support human decisions, not replace human judgment or free will.
It should be a supportive tool, not something that takes over or tells us what to do.
Exactly. Bias and fairness are also massive concerns. AI learns from human-created data, inheriting existing societal biases. This can lead to unfair or discriminatory interpretations of patience or impatience across different groups. We need diverse training data, regular audits, fairness measures built right into the systems. Privacy and data security are paramount, especially with sensitive emotional or health data. Informed consent needs to be crystal clear. Transparency and explainability, XAI, are also vital for trust. Users need to understand, at some level, how the AI works, its limits, its assumptions. We need to be able to see what the AI is doing and why, especially if it's giving us feedback about ourselves.
Makes sense.
And we must actively design to prevent manipulation and over-reliance. AI shouldn't exploit human impatience for commercial gain, think addictive interface patterns. It should also avoid hindering the development of our own independent skills. The goal is augmentation, not replacement. The whole approach must be fundamentally human-centered, prioritizing human values, needs, well-being. AI as a collaborative tool.
Okay.
And finally, developers have a significant responsibility, particularly when designing tools for vulnerable populations like children or those with mental health conditions. Addressing risks related to privacy, bias, consent, potential psychological harm, that's non-negotiable.
So wrapping that up, AI has this incredible potential to help us understand and cultivate patience. Through personalized insights, assisted training, maybe even mitigating harmful impulsive behaviors. But because it lacks that subjective human understanding, this requires extremely vigilant ethical design. Focus on human autonomy, fairness, privacy, transparency, ensuring AI genuinely supports human flourishing rather than creating new problems or dependencies.
That feels like the core challenge and the opportunity as we integrate these powerful technologies more deeply into our lives.
What a deep dive this has been, seriously. We've journeyed from the nuanced definition of patience, seeing it's this active capacity rooted in our biology, minds, ethics, seen its rich expressions across cultures and faiths, traced its development across our lives, explored its profound impact on everything from our personal health to the planet's health, confronted the very real shadow cast by impatience, and seen how art reflects these deeply human struggles.
And now we've grappled with the role of AI, its ability to mirror and simulate aspects of patience, its exciting potential to help us cultivate this virtue. All standing in fascinating contrast, as you said, to AI's fundamental inability to truly feel or subjectively understand patients like a human does from the inside.
It leaves you with a pretty significant question, doesn't it? We've seen that patience is so fundamentally tied to navigating the core human condition. Our limitations, our suffering, the complexities of our relationships, our search for purpose, our awareness of how finite our time is. If patience is this deeply, intrinsically human journey, can AI, which exists entirely outside of that messy, lived, subjective reality, can it ever truly guide us towards a deeper, more profound patience? Or is that ultimate work, that inner cultivation, something we simply must undertake ourselves within the unique and profoundly meaningful experience of being human?
That's a question worth patiently considering.
This is DigitView,